Welcome everybody. This being the first meeting for 2005 for January, and welcome you all back after our Christmas and New Year break. And you can see from the agenda there's been a lot going on during that time. Members of the public, of which there's only one at the moment, but perhaps he'll be joined by others later on. Please be advised that this council meeting is recorded. It will be live streamed and will remain available to the public online. And Councillor Wiley, could I call on you to do our acknowledgement of country and statement of values, please?
Yes, no problem. So the acknowledgement of country. The Central Coast Council acknowledges and pays respect to the traditional owners of Lutruwita, Tasmania, the Palawa Pakana people. We acknowledge the Punalapana tribe of this northern country, and in doing so, we celebrate one of the world's oldest continuing cultures. And our statement of values, guided by the diverse beliefs, experiences and backgrounds of the people we represent, we strive to make inspired and respectful decisions today that will build a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. It takes us to item 1, attendance and apologies. So we have apologies from Councillor Philip Viney and apologies from the Director of Community Services. Item 2 is declaration of interest. Councillors and staff must declare any pecuniary or conflict of interest in any item on the agenda at this time. Are there any conflicts to declare? No. Item 3 is confirmation of the minutes. Looking to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting from the 9th of December. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion? Councillor Hiskett, Councillor Wiley, any questions on the accuracy of those minutes? No, there being none, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Item 4 is the Mayor's report, and item 4.1 is the Mayor's communications. And because it only happened in the last couple of days, I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate everybody that participated in the organisation and the delivery of Pacific Rhythm, which was our Pacific Island Festival, which took place on Saturday evening at the Sound Shell. Such a beautiful setting. I don't know how many people we thought were going to be there, but there were many, many more. The estimate was put at 1,000 on site. So it certainly was a very big event, and we had performances from such a large range of nationalities and folks from different countries that are all members of the PALM scheme and come to us to provide a range of services, everything from meat processing and packing in Smithton right through to the berries that we know so well, and the vegetables that we are all famous for on the northwest coast, and we couldn't do the work and have the harvest without them. So we had performances from Samoa, from Vanuatu, from Fiji, Timor-Leste, Samoa, the Solomon Islands, and Tonga. And we had representatives join us from AgriLabour and the Connect Group, the Owen Pacific Workforce in Wales, and some that were employed directly by Costa. And as you'll appreciate, there are the employer agencies that provide the middle employment of these folks, and then they are dispatched to different sites to do their work. We were incredibly pleased to be joined by the Honorary Consul for Timor-Leste, Mr. Nitin Verma, and his lovely wife Anu. And we're also blessed to be joined by the Country Liaison Officer for Tonga, Alciona Vaca. It was so great to have those representatives from those specific countries who are committed to seeing success for their people whilst they're here in Tasmania and for the benefit that goes back to the countries. And it was great that before the performances, often a leader of that group had no hesitation at all at jumping on the microphone and saying a few words and telling us a little bit about their performance and what they were going to do and what it meant for them. We certainly will be looking at continuing this in the future. I'm excited to work with our neighbouring councils to make sure that we take that opportunity. My sincere congratulations to our community development team, particularly Lee Gracie. It came about, it got bigger than Ben-Hur, as these things do, and as those of you that were with us on the night will attest, those performers would sing and dance till midnight if you let them. So it was certainly a great event, and I just wanted to congratulate the staff that put that on, and thank those of you that were able to join me for doing so. That takes us to 4.2.
One more thing there.
Yes, certainly.
Mayor's diary.
Just moving out of the Mayor's
Sorry.
diary. No, that is okay.
Yep.
4.2 being the Mayor's diary. So there's a list there of events that a range of you have attended for the organisation during the last period, and Council and the Deputy Mayor's got one to add there.
I do, Mayor. I attended on your behalf yesterday the Veterans cricket match that was held, which is the Mayor's Cup between Central Coast and Circular Head. It was interesting how our Circular Head Mayor didn't turn up. I don't know whether he foresaw what perhaps was going to happen, but the Central Coast team, or there's a mixture of people in that, the Rovers, they've won back the trophy, and we've taken it back from Circular Head. So it was a pleasure to represent you there yesterday, Mayor. There was 3 overs to go, and they needed 6 runs. This is Circular Head, or the Red Par, and the Rovers restricted them to be able to take out the win. So there was much excitement, and it was a pleasure to present the trophy to the captain, the captain of the day, which was Nick Solis. And yeah, so it was a great day, and you'll be so pleased. You did say to me before I went, even if they do win, Jared's not here to present it, so we'll keep it anyway. So I was glad that they did win, and I didn't have to sort of wrestle it off the Circular Head players. But
thank you so much. That is good news. Anything else that anybody needs to add to the Mayor's diary? No, if not, would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, including the addition for the Deputy Mayor? Thank you, Councillor Diffrose, seconded Councillor Lehman. Any questions? No. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. That takes us to item 5, and 5.1 is councillor communications. Councillors are invited to make any reports from committees or parts of the community that they need to share with us at this time. Anybody have anything to add? No. 5.2, councillors' questions on notice. You may ask and you'll be responded to at this time. Any questions for the directors or for the acting CEO at this time? No. Thank you. That takes us to item 5.4, which is a motion on notice regarding the Penguin Wharf Precinct. Councillor Hiskett has given an intention to move. You're invited to move your notice of motion. I presume you wish to do so. Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Hiskett.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. It's most of the information regarding the notice of motion is already printed, and you've seen the supporting information as well. But so I'll speak briefly, a few extra comments. But this is to say the item I'm bringing forward is for a very active club within Penguin, the Penguin Fishing and Boaters Club. But the benefit is for all of the community. The idea here is to create a precinct on the in the wharf side of Penguin, which would shoehorn the work that we've continued to do along the shared pathway there, and to sort of bring that to a conclusion in that area. And it's to create, as they mentioned in the report, a historic precinct. So it would have elements of what the jetty used to look like. It would also provide a space for food vans and for kids to get a way to do their fishing, but also a staging point for future potential fishing competitions in the region as well. There'd be the areas to be able to take pictures of Penguin, because it's common an area out there where people do that, overlooking the Penguin Township, and this would just enhance that area and bring more people down to that space, spreading the load on Penguin, not just focusing on the main part of town. It obviously has some safety benefits as well to have a full all-access, all-tides wharf in Penguin, which is part of the proposal. Allows entry from multiple points along the coast. More area to get people out instead of clogging up areas. Some areas, like our Ulverstone area, which can be filled up with other sporting events, which makes it very hard to find the access to get out. It just provides another point along the coast to do that. And creates that tourism destination, which we know there are more people coming down to Tasmania for these sorts of fishing events now than there ever have been as well. So provides quite a lot of benefit. But the other side of this is just a commercial consideration. It's something that we, in my opinion, are going to have to spend money on anyway. It's getting to a point where it's becoming derelict. We're going to have to spend money. So why not potentially leverage the opportunity we've got here to get our federal counterparts to put their part towards it? There's a comment within the report stating, it might take longer for it to get done if we have to go through the federal process. But I think if we don't start now, when will we start doing this? And it's something that, if we leave until it falls apart and then we start thinking about it, well, that's too late in my opinion. We need to start moving on it a lot earlier than that. And this is the opportunity. We've got a club that has provided something to us, and I think we should take this opportunity when we can. I've included into the motion a requirement for a feasibility study. This allows us to say, yeah, we think this is okay. If we receive federal funding, we progress. We then can, I think, confidently go back out to the community after we've done this and say, look, it doesn't stack up. There's due diligence has been done. We can go out to the community and say, this doesn't stack up. We're not going to do it. Or we can say, hopefully, which we expect, it does stack up. And therefore, we've got that assurity within the motion to be able to pull back if there's issues, but to progress forward if there isn't issues. And that's what we are very much hoping that it'll be happen. And the other side of it is that it is only a commitment based on federal election funding. So it's not committing council to something that they have to do if we don't get the funding for it. It's something we can do into the future, but I think now is the opportunity. Otherwise, again, in a year or 2 years' time, we finally get forced to deal with it. We end up looking at it at that point in time saying, oh, where are we going to find money for? We don't get money from the feds at that point in time. It just becomes such an issue. So I just really think that this is important, that we seize the opportunity, and I think that's what council can do. We can seize the opportunity that's in front of us, and I think that's the way to progress this motion. So I commit the motion, and I'll be happy to hear the debate around the table.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Other speakers? Councillor Carpenter.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Hiscott, for putting this motion forward. And I think I'm not going to go through everything that Councillor Hiscott spoke about, but it is an opportunistic time to probably do this. And with respect to the report from the council officers, at times things come along our way that we haven't planned for, haven't budgeted for, haven't been able to fit in. And if we don't put our hand up, they might never come along again. And if we don't support this, and this is only a leg up to this group, this active group that want to try and build something and finish off Penguin, which is really all about bookending that wonderful foreshore of Penguin and creating that history strip, and some parking. And in actual fact, all it is some rock walls, some rock stuff, and some jetties and a bit of a floating wharf and hard stand. So throughout the report, it sort of reads it could become one of our election priorities. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think it would become our number one election priority or anything like that, because we are supporting a group of people that's passionate about doing something in Penguin. And hopefully, with our support, just a letter of support to say that we agree with what they're trying to do, would get this over the line. I'm not suggesting it's going to get over the line for one little bit. I'd be surprised if it probably does. But they are putting their time and effort into this and done their initial drawings and some initial costings with the support of others. And I think it'd be a shame if we don't just give it this initial support and this bit of a push along. I think it's another project, if it did come to fruition, it's another project that could be managed outside of council because there's no buildings going on. So to me, it's more of a feasible project to let outside people, contractors, manage this type of project with rock walls and the jetty and so forth. So, if we could all look into crystal balls and say in 4 or 5 years' time when this project might have, if the funding is available and the project actually hits the road, we might be able to have contractors outside that can do this work, that we don't have to put that pressure on council staff and so forth. A lot of it is crystal balling. We honestly don't know. We don't know. And I'd hate to miss this opportunity of $250,000 investment for the sake of a $6 million program that would really bookend that part of town. Going forward in council elections, or in government elections, if it's left at 27, it's 2030. And that really is a long time. Instead of being 6 million in now, supposedly 6 million now going forward. In 2030, it could be 10, 12 or 13. And then you would probably say this is just not feasible, not viable. I think the time now is viable. Yes, it's not budgeted for us, not in our long-term plan. Totally accept that and respect that, and would totally respect the council's decision. But I would urge councillors to think about the opportunity. It's not us out on that platform saying we want this money to build this. It's not council. We are supporting a group with a letter of offer. It doesn't tie us down to make it a number one priority, because I've sat around the table as a councillor and I've never ever saw a motion saying this is going to be our number one priority, and I wouldn't vote that in anyway if that was there, because it's not my number one priority. The walking path is. So I don't, I think all that's irrelevant at this present point in time, and I just urge councillors to give it a real think about the time going ahead, because it's a long way away before anything would happen with all the studies and stuff to go on.
Good, thank you. Other speakers, Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. With all due respect, Councillor Carpenter, we are crystal balling a little bit too much right now, in my opinion, in the fact that we have got a term plan. We aren't necessarily looking like we're meeting some of the priorities that we do need to meet, which are priorities that the community have set and the council have also agreed to do. So I do worry for a number of reasons that we haven't done the work that we need to do. To know, first of all, what the financial risk is if we approve $250,000 and just say it does blow out to $8 million. We don't know what that's going to be, and it always comes back to local government to fill that that gap, so to speak. So there's a few other reasons as well, but I'm just not sure about this at this stage, because we do have a group that's actively pursuing this, but we don't know what the wider community want as yet. So I agree doing a feasibility study is a good way of doing it, but I just feel that with our term plan that we have already set, I would like to see, I think it's a great idea, but I just don't know if the timing's right for us. So I feel as though I wouldn't like to support it until I know more risks that would be associated.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Lona.
Yeah, I agree that this is a great opportunity for Penguin and the Central Coast, and it's great to see people thinking about how we can create these spaces for our future. But I do wonder about the proposed amount and whether it's reflective of the entire piece of work, or as we've said, it's just to get us started. And I can see your point there, but it just it will result in I guess expenditure that we don't know about yet. There are unknowns to this, which of course there always are, and I guess the intention is to secure funding from the federal government. We haven't requested a specific monetary figure. We've only said sufficient funding, and that could be subjective in itself. I guess while I commend you for putting this forward, I just at this point I tend to agree with the councillor Wiley that it's perhaps not the right time. We do need to do a lot of work before we get to a place where we understand the full financial impact of this decision.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Chiprice.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to congratulate Councillor Hiskett for bringing the motion forward, but more importantly to the Penguin Fishers and Boaters Club for having the foresight to do so. Some say crystal balling, some say forward planning, forward thinking, whatever, and I actually can envisage a nice walk along the shared pathway looking at some youth fishing off the jetty. That area now already has a food van that goes there, which is quite popular. I think in the time ahead, that can be expanded, and that just give that whole foreshore area, a great look and a great feel. I'm not saying it doesn't already, but it can be expanded on. We're just looking, we're being asked to commit $250,000 with a feasibility study if they secure funding from elsewhere. And this is not the first time we've done this kind of thing. And so I think it's a great great initiative. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it's like a lot of other things. You just have to start from somewhere by putting things on the table, and you know, with the support from the Ulverstone, the Marine Rescue Ulverstone group as well, to give them another avenue to get one of their boats out when they need to. I think that should be considered as well. Yes, so without repeating anything else, that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Any other speakers?
You're up.
Councillor Smith.
I've come to the table with a very open mind on this. You know, I am a progressive thinker and I do like to see things progress. As I understand, we're actually not committing to that money. It's until they get the money, then we go with it. I'm not exactly sure who will be, if it goes ahead, who will maintain it, but that's for a discussion for another day. But wouldn't that really nicely finish off that area around there? You know, we got that beautiful rock wall around there. It's Penguin's going right ahead with our housing development and blocks and everything that's happening there. It's not going to be straight away that it's going to happen. It's not. It might be 3 years. As you can see, I'm really struggling with this because I do like to see progression. I like to see things going ahead. And I like to probably support people that's having a go. So in that respect, I think that I'd like to see that progress.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Yeah. Again, like everybody, thanks Casey for, Councillor Heskett for putting the motion up, because in the end, that's the way things can get moved forward. And again, as Councillor Duprose suggested, thanks for the group that have worked through this and so forth. Like Councillor Wiley and Councillor Lehman, I won't be supporting the motion. I've made some notes here and I will go through them. So, in my opinion, we shouldn't change our already well thought out term plan that we as councillors and senior staff are determined due to the political cycle of an election. Political cycle of an election, funding which one community group is trying to leverage. In the end, and I take on board Councillor Carpenter, I kept trying to first name. Councillor Carpenter mentioned that that it might not go ahead. But what happens if the proponents have got enough, I'll say, political leverage with somebody that they get the funding in this first round, and that party wins the election? We're up for that 250,000 commitment in the next financial year if it goes ahead in that time frame, and I'm not prepared to take that risk. To me, it's fraught with danger if we change our planned direction when there has been no structured consultation to assess whether this is in fact supported by the community over other projects that have been planned and requested over many years. If we support this motion tonight and one of the political parties picks this up and is successful, we'll need to then remove already agreed projects from our term plan to fund our commitment. At our community conversations, we listen to the community's needs, and I don't remember any resident raising this project with us. But at most of the conversations, whether it's Penguin, Ulverstone, North Moreton or wherever, we're asked about the coastal pathway and how we can get that finished. I would rather see this extra expenditure go into that, which benefits the whole community and also tourists, can complete the link between our towns. MAST is the authority that does assessment of all boating needs, and they've assessed the ramps and determined that the requirements for the area. Each municipality along this section of the coast has one substantial launching facility for those with larger boats. It's only 26 kilometres between the Ulverstone and Burnie boat ramps, and only 84 kilometres from Wynyard to Port Sorell, with Devonport in between. So there are 5 substantial launching facilities, plus numerous other smaller boats can use. including Penguin, Forth, Somerset, and all the other areas. The current jetty isn't suitable for boats being launched at the moment because it's a fixed height. So other than at high tide, in most cases now, that can't be used. If it needs to be rebuilt, it won't be rebuilt as that jetty is. It'll need to be a floating one, so that then it'll be able to be accessed by boats from all water levels. So there wouldn't be a rebuild of the existing one. I've spoken to Volunteer Marine Rescue, and we often have discussions with them, riding past, drop in to say good day. Yes, they would support that, to have that there, but there's a lot that money could also be spent on facilities that they're in dire need of for their operations over there. They've got a great new boat that they can't fit into their building. We need to spend money on that building, and then that can be housed there rather than have to bring it in and then launch there. So there's a lot of benefit in that. As much as I'd love, like everybody else says, to be able to finish off, perhaps bookend the Penguin area, I just think it's the wrong time. I've had a look at our 10-year plan
30 seconds.
to see what we could and haven't done, and I've also had a look at the long-term unfunded projects. And it's interesting to look through the ones that we've got unfunded there that we'd like to do that's in our 10-year plan. So unfortunately, I can't support the motion at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. I also can't support the motion, although it's a good idea. I think we've all gone, that is a good idea. And to the point that was raised, somebody should time me, please, Gus. Ian, sorry. So I think, we're unanimous for a myriad of reasons. It's a good idea. However, it's the wrong time. And whilst it's very easy to just think about, even in the other contributions that are made, about that relatively small amount of money in exchange for a large amount of money, for me, it is not about the money. It is not about $250,000. It is not that long ago that we as a group had a look at a hard and honest look with our directors at the work back in 2023 that they had committed to deliver in 1 year. And we had to robustly examine that and ask them to be honest with us about the workload that was associated with all of that work. And they told you that what they currently had at that point in time listed as a year's worth of work would in fact take 3. Last week, we saw the capital projects that were already for this financial year, and you agreed to defer numerous capital projects because the directors advised that they could not deliver it. So for me, it's not about the money. Councillor Smith, you shouldn't be confused about who will own the asset. We will own the asset.
Thank you.
Respect a range of views, but for me personally, I feel that would send the message that it was an election priority. I don't think there's any getting away from that. If you're asking for a project to be done as part of an election cycle, then I think by the very definition of it, it becomes part of our range of election commitments. Suppose I also want to just reflect on the fact that money doesn't just come when there's elections. The public may think that is the time when you secure money. But this council has had plenty of examples where we have secured money in between election cycles. And of course, the Prime Minister was only here last week and funded the next level of work for Living City for the Devonport City Council, which is not an election commitment. And that happens because you've done the work. You've done the work. It's part of your strategy. It's been consistent. You've done the rigour. You've got the plans. I agree that finishing off that end of the bay is much needed. And as several of you know, I had hoped to get some of that work done as part of the approved development application for the Penguin Caravan Park. The road needs to be widened. We still haven't had the time or the resources, human resources, to remove the railway, which has now been defunct for some 4 years. The Nut, as much as we love it, needs some work. There's new tenants in the Scout Hall, which is fabulous. It is a precinct. It deserves the respect of doing it well and doing it properly. I have foreshadowed for you a motion If Councillor Hiskett's motion fails, you have my foreshadowed motion to ensure that we actually don't just stop here, vote it up or down and walk away. As you can tell by the acting CEO's report, there is the strongest reflection that you can have from staff that it's not about the money, it's about the work. And for me personally, it is about our commitment to them of a 3-year rolling plan, and the fact that we would take their concerns very seriously, and that we wouldn't find ourselves in a position where we again had asked them to do too much and too little, and to our community we had overpromised and underdelivered. Love the concept, support the idea, and those that are passionate about it, but the timing's not just right for me, so I won't be able to support the motion. But I thank you for bringing it. That must bring all speakers to the end. Councillor Heskett, your response.
Thank you, and I guess I'll remind that our the intent of the debate is to sway debate, and so that I hope there's still some swaying to be done. And I'll start that with 3 words: summer on ice. Was that in our long-term plan? Do we agree that the spend that council has put on that was of great benefit to our community? Like, we don't have to, we can seize opportunities, and this is what this is. It is seizing opportunity. If we always just went away and said, no, that's not in our long-term plan, we're not going to do that, then we wouldn't have had that successful event that's just gone through. So, I think that's a great opportunity that was there. We seized it happened, and look how good it was. And I think the same opportunity is here in front of us. We can seize that opportunity and make it happen. Everyone says it's a great idea, but doesn't have the fortitude to support it. So it's going to happen. Like, why if we're saying it's a great idea, I think we need to go out there and try to make it happen. Like, it's as Councillor Carpenter said, it doesn't have to be managed by staff. We also haven't set our budget or our capital works for 25-26 yet. So there's not reason to say that we can't. You can't say that we don't have the time to do it because we haven't set what we're going to do next year. So I think it can be incorporated into our budget for next year, or our budget and works program. We don't not have the time because we haven't set what we're going to do in that time. So I think that argument doesn't hold weight there. And there are some unknowns, absolutely. We've got work to do on that, and that's why the motion allows for that. It allows for the feasibility study to make sure that it is reasonable. And if that takes the time to do right, then that's the motion says that it has to be done regardless of how long that takes. So I really think we've got the opportunity there. We've not set the work. So I think this is our moment. If it doesn't happen, we're waiting. If we wait till 2027 to look at it, that means this might be 2030 before we get to it. In the meantime, Penguin's going to be without a jetty for 6 years, 7 years, and I just don't think that's an acceptable situation in my opinion. So I hope that final comment may have swayed some conversation, but we'll see where the vote goes. So thank you very much for everyone for allowing me to bring the motion to the table.
Thank you so much. And before I put the motion to the table, just a point of clarification: this isn't about the jetty. Acting CEO, is that to be very clear? A decision will need to be made about the jetty, albeit at a different point in time or separately. But this project doesn't relate to the jetty per se.
So just to be clear, the jetty is likely to need replacing and allowed for in next financial year's budget. So there would be a decision point around whether or not to replace the jetty at all. Should we proceed with this motion? So
good. I just want to be clear. Jetty. Rams. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. That concludes the debate. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye. Raise your hands, please. A and a C. Pop a bit up so I can see. That's it. Thank you. And those against. Show of hands, please. And the motion is tied, which is lost. Yes, thank you. So the motion is lost. I foreshadowed a subsequent motion, which I would like to put to you with your consent. And so to do so, I will vacate the chair and the Deputy Mayor will take. We do physically move so that he can see everybody at the table. Otherwise, you just can't see everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. So you'd like to move your alternate motion?
Thank you. So the motion was not an alternate motion, it is a new motion. So the motion is further to the supporting statement provided by Councillor Hiskett and the report from the acting CEO as part of the previous agenda item. I'd like to move the following: that the future development of the Penguin Wharf precinct be included in the review of the Penguin CBD master plan and thereafter be considered as a funding priority in the next term plan commencing 2027.
Thanks, Mayor. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wiley. Mayor, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. Nothing more to say. We've just had a good conversation. My intent with this is that if the previous motion was lost, then there was no further action on what we all agreed was a good idea. So the Penguin CBD master plan is currently being reviewed over the coming months. If we incorporate that precinct and the work that needs to do into that scope and get some great community feedback, and again hear from the groups that have supported the concept, then will give us a chance to do the work and have a plan and to make it part of our strategic work going forward for hopefully an absolutely great outcome for all concerned.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other speakers on the motion? Sophie?
I just wanted to say I will support this motion, and I think because it is such a good idea that we should not lose sight of it, and this will ensure that we don't lose sight of this great idea.
Councillor Hiskett?
Well, I'll consider this the second best option, but if we have to go with second best, then we'll go with that. So yes, it is good. I appreciate the work you've put into this to bring it forward, because it is a good point. If nothing had have happened here, it could have potentially been lost, and this at least allows it to be captured. And although it's regretful that it's come to this, I will support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Wiley?
I'm really pleased to see this second motion. I think that it's good to see that the good idea and the hard work isn't going to be lost. I'm especially, I guess, thankful that we're going to have a chance to see that if this asset, this asset will become a council asset, and the costs that are going to be involved in that long term, I think is crucially important for our council to understand. So really pleased if this motion is carried that we get the opportunity to understand that fully.
Any other speakers? Councillor Carter?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. No, I can't support the motion at the moment. I should have spoke earlier. Sorry, Mayor. And the only reason is the date, the timeline. My concern is if we replace the jetty between now and 27, and if we sit and wait for the Penguin CBD master plan, it gives us 3 years to play around. If you got rid of the timeline, not an issue. Because if we got the CBD master plan done, say within the next 12, 18 months, and the jetty had to be replaced before 27, I would have loved the motion to incorporate that as part of your proposal going to government, even off election cycles. And I think I understand the reason for the date 27 and the way you sort of said it was to do with election cycles, but it probably wasn't meant that way.
Term plan.
Yeah, term plan. Sorry, I took it wrong way. Yeah, if we could roll it forward to incorporate that, as we heard from the acting CEO, the jetty could have to be done sooner rather than later. Like that bill could be whatever, we don't know. We have no idea. And if we could just move it forward a little bit.
Other speakers before we perhaps. I'd like to speak to the motion as well. I'd like to thank the Mayor for working with this, as Councillor Hiskett mentioned as well. Perhaps a question to the CEO, like I alluded to in what I said with the previous motion, that MAST are the people that actually do the building and construction of jetties, pontoons, ramps, and that's where to me that role is. It's not a matter of councils picking that up. So I suppose to the acting CEO, if that jetty does become unusable, would not MAST perhaps look at that and come up with a solution for us?
You acting? I'm not aware that MAST would come up with that solution for us, but I would suggest that the design and what we replace the jetty with would be a decision for council. I'd just like to refer to our Director of Infrastructure Services, Paul Braden, to see if he has anything to add to that.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy. We would liaise very closely with MAST on any solution to the Penguin Jetty. Not the precinct as a whole, but just the Penguin Jetty on what we need to do with that. We will do that reasonably soon, just given the nature of the condition. I don't have enough information to provide anything at the moment on what that cost might look like or what even the replacement might be, but we will know in the next month or so on what that would be. So that's probably the best I can give at this point.
If I can just continue on after that question then. I suppose that the jetty had to be replaced at West Ulverstone after the last flood. That was funded by MAST again in that instance?
Don't know the answer to that.
Anyway, there's a bit of work moving forward probably, but I think there's what you're saying about replacing the jetty. To me, there's a bit of work that probably needs to go around that. But if there's nobody else got anything else, I'll pass it back to the Mayor to close.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, the timeline, as I hope I made clear, is in the timeline of 2027 is the commencement of our next term plan. And this reflects our conversation about the fact that we have a term plan which we've agreed, and we've already added to that term plan, even in the very short time that we've been together as a council. We have added the Our Homes, Our Future piece of work, because there was money offered from the federal government that was significant, and we knew that we needed that strategic work done because it was a gap for us. So we said, there is an opportunity we cannot pass up. And that is now what Daryl essentially does with half of his time. We have already added our examination of the value of the dial. And with Councillor Wiley's motion, because again, we thought that because it was timeline driven and it was opportune, and we felt that it was important to understand the value that gave us. We added that to the list. We added the dial plan because we didn't believe that the state government should inject $25 million into a precinct that had no broader strategic plan for the community. And yes, we secured that funding from the state government. But that's what Daryl will also be doing. So as I've said before, for me, it's not about the money. You can come up with $250,000. It is a 2% rate increase on your constituents, if that's how you want to justify it to people. But it's not about that. It is about the work that needs to be done from the staff. And of course, none of that makes mention of the fact that we have been without a CEO for 3 months, and your request as our request as a group was that we ask our directors to be acting, and we always knew that was going to have an impact on the delivery of programs, no matter how hard they work and how hard they've tried. So it's all about the timing. So yes, the 2027 relates to the term plan, and here we sit, and it is already 2025, and time doth fly very, very fast. So again, the essence is that for us not to use it, not to lose the idea, but to do it well and do it properly and create something we're going to be very proud of. And when it's done properly, the money will flow.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll put the motion in. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Those against?
I'm not to vote again.
That's cut. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Probably should be don't want me to stay. There's your turn.
Thank you all. A good discussion. Lost my tab. Thank you. That takes us to item 6, petitions and deputations. And the report there is for you in relation to the petition that was received back in December, but missed the December meeting, to preserve the Haybridge Recreation Ground for community use. We've received the petition. You've received a copy of that. And as the report says, The acting CEO has advised that the petition will be included as a public submission for formal consideration as part of the bylaw. So again, we won't lose the important work that community members have done to put their voice forward. We will make that part of the formal submissions. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item? Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Begley. Any discussion?
No, Mayor, I think what I asked earlier before the meeting's been cleared up, and I think the petitioners will be fine.
Good. Excellent. Any other speakers? No, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 6.2 is deputations. No request to address the meeting as deputations have been made. And item 7 is public question time. And thank you for your patience, those of you that have come for public question time. We don't normally have that much discussion on other topics before we get to public question time. But here we are now. Public question time is conducted in accordance with the local government meeting regulations and council's own public question time policy. We allocate a period of 30 minutes. So just before we go to questions from the floor, there is public questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. One question was taken on notice on the 9th of December 24 council meeting, and the council's written responses to questions are sent directly to the questioner and provided in the agenda for the purpose of recording. So that was some questions from yourself, Mr. Haney, and we appreciate that. And your question and our answers are recorded in the agenda for the record keeping. And public questions on notice. 2 questions from a member of the public were submitted on notice for this January meeting from Mr. John Richardson, and in Mr. Richardson's absence, I'll read aloud. His first question was, what control system does council have in place to ensure that where any council officer or employee acts to seek or require legal opinion or counsel, there is no conflict of interest by either the council officer, employee, or legal practitioner engaged to provide the legal opinion or counsel? The response from the acting Chief Executive Officer: council employees are subject to a number of legislative provisions and internal policies that help manage any potential pecuniary or conflicts of interest arising through the business of council. These include, but are not limited to, the Local Government Act 1993, the council's Employee Code of Conduct, and the Gifts and Donations Policy. Legal practitioners are subject to their own legislative and industry standards relating to conflicts of interest. And Mr. Richardson's second question was, where a legal practitioner engaged by the council to provide legal advice or counsel on any matter whatsoever does so free of charge, gratis or pro bono basis, so an account is not rendered or issued to the council, how is such legal advice or counsel recorded or disclosed in council records? The response from the Acting Chief Executive Officer is, council does not receive any legal advice on a free of charge or similar basis. If such advice were received, it would be recorded in the same manner as all other legal advice. In addition to the Acting CEO's responses, I would like to add for the record that I've spoken with Mr. Richardson regarding the questions he has asked at this and the previous 2 council meetings. I advise Mr. Richardson that his last 6 questions have been of a similar nature, and that as such, any further questions he submits that may have been substantially asked at previous meetings may be refused in accordance with council's public question time policy. This is to ensure the council takes a fair and consistent approach. An alternative option, Mr. Richardson has been advised that he may contact the CEO directly to discuss any issues or concerns. Thank you. That takes us to public questions without notice. So public questions without notice provides an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of the council relating to activities of the council's. Statements and debate will not be allowed, and any questions must be clear and succinct. Members may ask up to 2 questions without notice at this time. Please address your questions to myself, state your name and the area in which you live. If we can answer your question tonight, we will certainly do so. And once again, I advise those of you in the gallery that the meeting is recorded, it will be live streamed and will remain available to the public online. All of that said, are there any questions from the gallery, please? If so, if you could just step up towards the end of the table where there's a microphone there to ensure that we capture what it is that you have to ask.
Paul Spicer, I'm a resident of Guns Plains.
Good evening, Mr. Spicer. Thanks for coming. How can we help?
I have two questions.
Yes.
First question. I contacted the council on the 3rd of January this year about council staff conduct and behaviour on the same day. Specifically, verbal abuse and the threat of violence to myself. Had no response from council despite numerous emails sent to council. Why haven't council responded to my complaint I made 17 days ago?
Thank you, Mr. Spicer, acting CEO. Hopefully you
Thank
can
you.
respond to this question.
Thanks for your question, Mr. Spicer. I'm afraid I can't go into detail about your complaint, given that it relates to staffing matter, which I can't answer through the formal council meeting process. But what I can say through the formal meeting process is that I know you will have a response to your complaint tomorrow morning, and I will invite you to come and meet with me following receipt of that complaint if you have any further concerns or questions.
Mr. Spicer will receive a response in writing, emailed to himself. Tomorrow is when he could expect it. Okay. And the reason for the delay?
So the complaint, which you've gone into a little bit of detail about here tonight, was quite serious in nature and required investigation in order to formally respond, which we have undertaken, and I have an outcome for that process now.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. And a second question?
Yes. On the 3rd of the 10th last year, there was council excavating trucks were working on private property beside my property. And was this work part of council's responsibility, normal responsibility, and records of it kept? Who authorised for the work to be done on private property?
Thank you. Good. I think that's a clear question. Acting CEO, your response?
Thank you. I might take that question on notice if I can and provide a written response to you following the meeting, and that response will also be provided in the council agenda. Thank you, Mr. Spicer.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Michael, any questions for us this evening?
The rest business, no?
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both for attending, and thank Mr. Spicer for your question. That must take us to section 8, item 8.1, council acting as a planning authority. You have the application and all the supportive documentation there. Would a councillor care to move the suggested motion for this item?
Don't move, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick, seconded. Councillor Lehman, thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Sorry, I'm just catching up. Which item is that one again? I'm just trying to find the.
This is 8.2. This is 36 Kings Parade.
Oh,
30.1 still. We didn't know.
I thought it was
I
8.1.
apologise.
That's what I thought I was moving.
Thank you.
That's what.
Yes. Sorry, that is my apologies. This is 8.1. This is council acting as a planning authority. Move councillor Beswick, seconded councillor Lehman. Badly managed by the mayor. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against, declared it carried. That takes us to item 8.2, which is 36 Kings Parade, Ulverston, a residential dwelling extension. Would a councillor care to move this resolution, please? Thank you. Councillor Diprose, a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Diprose. Don't rush.
No, so
Find the thing.
no, I've got it.
I've lost my thing.
Have it here. Quite often, applications come to us that are not always easy to consider. We have guidelines and parameters that we try to work within, and sometimes applications come in that go outside of those parameters that we want to work within. However, we have discretion over those. This is one of those ones where we're looking at a bit more shading that is going to, this extension is going to affect another property a bit, but it's also quite a bit taller. Extension is a bit taller than what we would normally be looking at. However, personally, I really don't think there's anything that we can, or anything that comes to me that we can knock this back on. So I believe as it stands, it should be able to go ahead, but I think people need to be mindful that when they're putting development applications through, that they probably need to look at and be a bit more considerate of others. Not saying that this application doesn't consider anyone else, but we have rules and regulations and we have guidelines and everything for a reason. So it's a lot more easy to consider if people try and stay within those guidelines, etc. Yeah, so that's all. Yeah.
Yep, thank you so much. Great. Other speakers? Councillor Bestwick.
Yes, Mayor. I couldn't move this motion because I don't really support it. I understand the staff have come up with a recommendation for this, and our staff do a fantastic job, and I don't like to necessarily speak against what they've recommended. I'm disappointed that the designer and the proponent hasn't taken into consideration the eastern neighbour, where the extensions of bulk and scale is going to tower over their place of their backyard. There was a lot of scope to have this extension further to the west and alleviate some of the impact on what is already a close neighbour. I understand how designs work, and you've got a building envelope to fit in. This one, to me, is too far outside that building envelope to be what I would consider acceptable. If this does get up tonight with the vote, I would encourage the owner and the designer to consider this impact and be a bit more sympathetic in the final design, because this is only a planning design. So there is an option to mediate some of the issues. A couple of things, I'm looking at it. I know I'm here as a planning authority, but when I look at these things, I've got a bit of experience in this area. The western facade, for instance, hasn't got an eave on it, whereas the eastern one, which is affecting these people, has got an eave on it, which adds 600 mil closer to the boundary. And the ceiling upstairs is 2,700 high, so therefore it adds another 300 mil in height to what is also there. So they could consider it to be at 2,400. This would help in some small way if it couldn't be designed so instead of cantilevering over the eastern side, that it cantilevered over the western side of the property, which would even alleviate that more. Naturally, whichever way this goes, which has been suggested to me when I've had discussions with the director this week, even if we did refuse this application, the proponent and the people that have done the plans might appeal our decision, but naturally the neighbour could appeal this decision that we've come up with as well, because the bulk and scale to me in this situation is probably too far. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Other speakers? Councillor Carpenter.
Mayor, yeah, well, I'll go, Mayor, and I agree with Councillor Bestwick on this one, and it's mainly bulk and scale, and I feel sunlight to people is important, and I really have a feel for our community. our general residential, the way we're going to become so high density that we'll lose the type of style we've had in around our houses and backyards, and the piece in the amenity that we use of our back part of our house in sunlight. And it's probably a shame that the representative didn't mention bulk and scale and only went with sunlight. And probably if he'd mentioned bulk and scale, he might have got a different answer. But it is the bulk and scale when you've got options there to go the other way a little bit. And I would, we sit here and we pass a lot of DAs over my time. And I have nothing with the summary that's been giving or anything like that. But I think this one is just a little bit outside what I would be comfortable with. And we've used the discretionary permit over a long period of time. It's there for a good reason and a great reason. And but this one I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with, Mayor.
Understood. Any other speakers? Councillor Wiley.
Thank you. I'm also uncomfortable with this one. I guess it's really important to again point out that we have two different roles in council, and acting as a planning authority is very different to necessarily the community work that we do. So the planners have done an amazing job with what they have, and their recommendation is for this to be approved. Without repeating everything that everybody else has already said, it is something that is a little bit uncomfortable, like Councillor Dupros has said before, and we just hope that that there is more of a neighbourly approach with some of these development applications that come through, because they have met the performance criteria, and there's not really anything else to say other than that.
Thank you so much. Councillor Smith.
Yes, I'll be supporting this. Our staff that we put in charge of to handle all this for us has put an acceptance for this. I know it's not easy, but they've feel that all the requirements have been adhered to, and thus put their recommendation for acceptance. I will support that motion because of that, for the staff and of what they suggest.
Right, thank you. Any other speakers? For me, I just had a couple of questions, if I may, to the Director, through you, Acting CEO. So, of course, part of the concern, I suppose, perhaps as the reader and also perhaps as the neighbours, the report indicates to us that the shading diagrams were done on some outdated aerial images of the neighbouring property, which didn't, the images didn't reflect that there'd been an extension on that neighbouring property. And of course, those neighbours, upon reading our agenda and the report, quite rightly would be very concerned that that wasn't taken into account. The response in the report, Director, clearly says that it was considered in practice. So if you put in a development application and the supporting documents are outdated, is there no obligation for the applicant to provide current documents?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess we always try and strive a balance between requiring what we need to do our job and do it well, and not creating unnecessary requirements and burdens and barriers. That would be my answer to that question, and I think it is explained in the report that when staff did investigate that particular issue, it wasn't going to alter their assessment.
Sure. No, and which is important to know, particularly when you read the representation. As others have said, whilst it is everybody's right to put forward an application for anything at all, and aren't we lucky to live in a country where you can do that, the building envelope and that concept is designed to create harmony particularly in a residential development, and to guide what community broadly has told us they think a buildings that will be considerate of not only the neighbours but the other people, members of the public that move around, and the other activities which take place surrounding. So we certainly do encourage people to get as close to thinking about their design that falls within that building envelope for that reason. It's interesting, some people see the planning scheme as a set of rules. I see the planning scheme as community's guide to how we live harmoniously together. So we certainly encourage people to think about that building envelope whenever we can. And as the director has rightly said, we have deliberately asked our staff to be easy to work with, and not demand things of people that are not necessary. So I appreciate his response. Part of that work is also the pre-planning meetings, which the manager and the director have implemented, which gives you an opportunity, even if you don't think that you need any advice in relation to your DA, perhaps that pre-planning meeting with a planner will unpack for you and make obvious to you some improvements that you could make that would make the life for others better, or even for your own living circumstances. So again, we certainly encourage anybody with any type of development to book a time, meet with our staff. Even when you think you know it all, there's always more to learn, isn't there? So I will be supporting the recommendation. We are acting as a planning scheme. Nobody has tabled an alternative resolution based on planning grounds for this item. There being no other speakers, unless somebody else has wanted to join, Councillor Diprose, would you like to close?
Oh, no, thanks, Mayor. I think everything's been said.
Thank you so much. I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? And let the record show. Thank you so much. And the motion is carried. That takes us to section 9, Office of the CEO and Mayor, and item 9.1, which is the Chief Executive Officer's report. You have a range of attachments to bring you up to date, and I think the only one that you have an updated hard copy of tonight is the schedule of correspondence that came in over the weekend. When somebody is ready, would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for this item, please? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Smith, did you wish to speak to this?
No, I think that's quite straightforward.
Self-explanatory. Any questions from?
Oh, sorry, not question.
I didn't know if you were scrolling.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You were scrolling.
Yes. No, it was a
any questions on any of the documents attached? I just had one, if I may, Acting CEO. I noticed there is a grant deed there for the Isolated Communities Resilience Grants from the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and I just wondered who that grant was for, or what that work was going to be.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That was actually a grant that Council successfully received in support of communities that may become isolated during emergencies and be unable to access primary evacuation centres. So it was for $6,633. And in our case, it was for the Guns Plains Hall for use in case of an emergency. And the site can essentially become a secondary evacuation centre should it need to be.
Fabulous. Great. That sounds like a great use of that money. I had a mover, didn't I? Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith, anything to close?
That's
No.
right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 9.2 is the annual general meeting for the year ending the 30th of June 2024. As you know, our annual general meeting was held on the 9th of December, and it's a requirement of the Act that at the next general meeting of the council that we consider the motions that were passed at the AGM. For us, there's no motions there that came from community, but as you know, any member of the community can attend AGM and possibly explore putting a motion, as happens elsewhere, hence the need for this process. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, please?
So moved,
Councillor Beswick, seconded. Councillor Hiskett. Any comments? Deputy
No,
Mayor?
thanks, Mayor.
Any questions? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. 9.3 is the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group 23-24 annual report. Some very interesting reading there on their activities over the year period covered by the annual report. Could I have somebody move the recommended motion for that item, please?
I'll move that, Mayor.
Thank you,
I'll
Councillor
move it.
Carpenter. Always be counted on for the
Waste.
waste.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Councillor Carpenter, did you wish to speak to this?
No, Mayor, I've read that report. As I said earlier on the night, I thought I'd done this a month ago. So, but I might have done something else with it a month ago. No, just commend it. Doing wonderful work and collaboration together, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Just briefly, Mayor, like I think in Tasmania we're a leader in waste. You know, with our FOGO facility and so forth, all going up there. As Councillor Carpenter said, you know, everything's just ticking along so well, and I look forward to the other councils coming on board with FOGO, for instance, moving forward. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other speakers or comments? I beg to differ there, Deputy Mayor. I think we have a long way to go. We have been talking about phasing out single-use plastics for as long as I've been sitting around this table, which is coming up to a very long time. And now it's gone from a municipal level to, oh, the regional think about it, and now the state's going to think about it. So I'm not sure where that is headed. I was really interested that the glass jars, the recycled glass jars, go to Heybridge for sand coverage of the landfill at Heybridge. I feel like that is something that our children would be interested to know. I hope that that's something that they are sharing with the schools in their school education, because I think it's just when you know it's just on your doorstep, it becomes a whole thing of new interest to you. And I just had a question for the Director of Infrastructure through you, Acting CEO. I noticed that the bin presentation rate for Central Coast is 55%. So correct me if I'm wrong. That means only, and clearly it's an average over the year across the municipality, but the presentation rate is the amount of bins that we actually put out on the curbside. So only 55% is the presentation rate. So it's interesting how I felt that conflicted with the message that we so often receive, which is we don't have enough room in our bins. Because you would think that as a collective and an average across the municipality, if we all didn't have enough room in our bins, the presentation rate would be like 99% of the time, and only it wouldn't happen when you're on holidays. So that's an interesting statistic. I don't know if that, I mean, they would have that information about it being broken down by at town level or at region level, but I thought it was particularly low. Anyway, you read things, you learn things when you read annual reports, don't you? Any other speakers? No. Councillor Carpenter, did you wish to close? I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Item 10 is community services. There are no open session items, which takes us to section 11, which is corporate services. 11.1 is the financial report. You have the various financial reports there. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for this item, please?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Heskett. Councillor Beswick, any questions or comments?
Not a lot. We're missing our financial expert here tonight, Councillor Viney, who's waylaid in an airport somewhere, I believe. Yeah, again, and we say it often, it's great with the reporting that's here before us these days. Over my short amount of time, you know, on council, the improvement here has been fantastic over that time. We can see where our variances are expected, what's favourable, and that. So, yeah, just those that want to read those sort of things, that's there on the agenda for those online to have a look at. But nothing more to add, Mayor.
Thank you.
Other than thank the staff.
Indeed. Thank you. Other speakers? No, thank you. I think we've had an earlier conversation with the acting CEO about some points there, which are clearly in the open agenda that we might be interested in learning some more about, and you've undertaken to come back to us with some information about some of those variances, which are red, not green. There'll always be some red ones, but it's, when there's a red one, you really want to be confident that you understand it. Yes. There being no other speakers, I put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Which takes us to 11.2, which is the Audit Panel Charter and Code of Conduct for members of the Audit Panel. You have been provided with a copy of the Charter dated January 2025 and a Code of Conduct for all members. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for this item, please? I'm looking at people that aren't on the audit. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor De Cruz. Councillor Smith, any questions
No,
or
I think
thoughts on?
that's quite explanatory. It's a good thing. We all got to adhere to it, and we do, especially in this council. And I think that's just a good little document that doesn't have to have much more said.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Acting CEO, I went hunting just for your note. There is a folder in Docs on Tap where councillors have all the updated information. There's a folder there for the audit panel. It hasn't been populated for quite some time, but when it comes to areas like the annual reports and so forth, it would be great. And these documents, it would be great if there was a single source of location for those. I'm not sure.
We can certainly organise that. I would say because it's tabled through the public meeting, then perhaps it hasn't been published to Docs on Tap also. But
no,
it's certainly no trouble to do both.
Often the case. Thank you. No other questions? Nothing to close? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Takes us to 11.3, which is the public interest disclosure procedures and public interest disclosure policy. That feels like a mouthful. You're provided with the procedures and the policy in relation to public interest disclosure. Would a councillor care to move the suggested motion for this item? Thank you, Councillor Hiskett. Seconded, Councillor Lehman. Councillor Hiskett, anything to ask or add?
I think the documents speak for themselves.
Any other speakers? Thank you, Councillor Beswick.
Yeah, just briefly, this is just an updating of one from 2022. So there's nothing, I don't think, drastically been changed. So every 3 or 4 years, we've got to go and do a new version just to make sure things are up to date. So that's all I would just like to add. Thanks.
Thank you. No, it says the procedures have been submitted to the Ombudsman for review, and of course, there's been some changes in the Act and in the guidelines and standards, so our policies need to reflect that they are consistent with that. There being no other discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Item 12 is infrastructure services. 12.1, works in road reserve policy review. Would a councillor care to move? Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Seconded, Councillor Beswick. Councillor Wiley, did you wish to speak to us about the works in road reservation policy?
Sure, I popped my hand up quickly for that one, didn't I? I don't know why. Again, just another updated policy just to reflect the, the times. So it just says it's still fit for purpose. There were just a few things with fees and charges that needed to be updated. So no, nothing else to say.
Any other comments or questions? No, I put the yes, Councillor Hiskett.
Ask I guess the question, and not to be answered tonight, but just how often that's being used would be an interesting statistic. I'm not sure if it's in our annual plan or not. I can't remember seeing it or not, but yeah, just to see what impact that's had historically as well. The changes made to that policy at the end 2019 to see if it made a difference or not.
Okay, good.
Just
thank you
for noting.
Sure, we can take that.
Thank you.
It's not hard to do.
Anything else? No, you're right. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Takes us to 12.2, which is the Merseyleave and Municipal Emergency Management Plan. Again, an updated plan. It is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Yes. And would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item, please? Thank you, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Beswick, anything to add?
Not that much to add, really, Mayor. It's a substantial document, obviously put out by the police department pretty much. And a lot of, it amazes me sometimes when I read through our agendas and so forth, how everybody keep on top of things. It, you know, yes, you can see why we have to have specialists that have their special areas, but sometimes I think some of these things could be a little bit diluted and make them a little bit more simple, but yeah, but nothing more to add. Thanks, Nick.
Any other speakers? Things such as this plan are an obligation from the state, and the line is always, how do we be best prepared and have a plan for protecting people in the case of emergencies, and how do we not overdo it? As you are all well aware, the resourcing of emergency management personnel and time across those 4 councils is a significant issue for us all. I was going to mention, Acting CEO, on page 38 of the report is the community resources. There's a list of 3 or 4 different types of community resources for the public. It would be good if our comms communications staff across all 4 councils, you know, were committed to, in a timely way at the appropriate time of the year, making sure that we are circulating and promoting those community resources. There's one there about, you know, your home insurance. There's one about fire risk and so forth. All of that information for the public is already out there. So it would be great if, again, we could get some consistency about how we make sure we share them all in a timely way. Was that you?
It was me.
It was. Anything to close?
There's nothing to close.
Thank you so much. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 13.1 is development support determinations. You've been provided with a list of development applications in a very easy to read, clear format. Would a councillor care to move the recommended motion for that item? Thank you, Councillor Hiscott. Seconded, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Hiscott, any comments or questions, please?
Just to note and make the public aware, as always, our days taken to approve applications being, in my opinion, well below what is required, and just to commend the staff for the work that they do to make that happen. It's good to see us not pushing for extensions, but instead giving people answers sooner rather than later. And I just think that it's worth making public, the fact that we're doing that. So just wanted to highlight that fact, and yeah, that's the main thing.
Thank you. Appreciate the highlight. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor.
I guess I'll just, I would like, don't know if this is the right spot to do it or not, but animals, it's good to see the amount of patrols that are being done on the beaches, and I just would like to say how delightful the team of dog management or animal management people are in Corey, and the other one's new person. Yes, yeah, the feedback's been really well received of how polite they are and still doing their job.
It's it can be tough work, can't it? Well, any sort of compliance is tough work, but yes, they're supporting each other well, and they're very approachable, and I too have had good feedback, let alone the fabulous video of them with their dog, which is very well received. And that is all about ensuring that people feel like we are approachable. So yeah, no, good work to them, and our thanks to them through their director. Any other comments on that report? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. That takes us to the meeting being closed to the public, and that the council by absolute majority close the meeting to the public to consider the matters that are listed in the agenda. Would a councillor care to move the meeting closed motion? Councillor Wiley, seconded Councillor Hiscott. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. And the meeting is now closed to the public at 7:23. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Spicer, for your questions.
Thank you.
Take care. We hope to see you again.
Thank you. See you later.